So we're here today with Julie, who's very kindly offered to chat with us about what it was like for her getting the diagnosis for her dog and some tips that would be helpful for new owners thinking about treatment and whether or not they can manage it. Thanks so much, Julie. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your story with Bailey.
Okay, so Bailey's an almost 8-year-old Bichon poodle, and for a couple of years, really, I knew something was off with her. She
Mhm.
gained around 2 kilos in weight. She started crying at the fridge for food, and she just wasn't herself. I went to lots of people and had lots of tests, and she would come back negative with some and positive with others, and nobody could give me a diagnosis.
And so it was really challenging because you knew there was something wrong, but not being able to get that answer worried you.
Yeah, it was really frustrating. She was tested for all kinds of diseases and there was just nothing pointing to anything really.
Mm,
Um, and then in December last year, she suddenly started drinking a lot,
mm.
excessive amount of water. And that's when I realized that it potentially could be diabetes. So I took her in and had a urine test done, which was really high. It was in the 30s, I think it was. Um, yeah, yeah. And from then on, I found out that she also had pancreatitis.
Which is probably why she suddenly became diabetic.
Yeah, which I learned afterwards was, yeah. Um, to start with, it was incredibly overwhelming and scary and hard to get your head around. I cried a lot. I was totally overwhelmed.
I can understand there's a lot of information coming at you, and it might be not something you're not very familiar with, and then worried about, are you doing well for your dog or could you do better?
Absolutely, all of that. But for me, I had to try my best because Bailey, for me, was worth it. Um, she lives a really good life, and I just wanted to make sure I could offer the best I could, best chance, really, I could for her. So I just kept asking questions and kept trying to find answers, and I wasn't afraid to. If it didn't sit well with me, I just kept going until I found something that I understood or I could make sense of.
So for you, it was about learning more about what was going on with Bailey and her treatments. You felt like you had a more active role in it and could support her in ways that you maybe weren't getting that support from the vet who's not there all the time.
Definitely. I did change vets. I found one quite locally that had a lot more knowledge about diabetes. Um, and she was great, but I just became a sponge. I wanted to get in as much information from as many different places as I could so that I felt like I had some control and that I was making an informed decisions about Bailey. But it was incredibly challenging. But it's so worth it because we're now 10 months into this and she's living her best life. She's still going to the beach. She's still running and playing. She's happy. There are days where she is feeling a little off, but most of the time she's amazing.
You can have off days. It sounds like you're really happy with the quality of life. How about your quality of life? Because that's a concern a lot of other owners have around, can I manage this around my lifestyle?
It does definitely take some adjusting. I've become very routine orientated with Bailey, like feeding her the 12 hourly, doing her insulin, testing her blood has all become very, very much a routine, but it's also a manageable routine. It's not something that is it's really hard. Once you know what you're doing and you understand it more, it becomes easier and easier.
So that sounds like it's very overwhelming at first, but over time, as you start to learn more about the disease and the treatment and how your dog responds to different things, you sort of settle into something that becomes quite manageable for you both.
Yes, yes, definitely. And I was very lucky that I did meet Graham that you mentioned earlier, and he has been a massive support,
Mm.
very knowledgeable, and it's finding those people that can be that person for you.
Someone who's gone through it and just knows those days are like, oh my God, I can't get the dog to eat or I can't do the injection or so everything's going terribly wrong.
Absolutely.
What surprised you the most in this journey so far?
Resilient dogs are. You know, to start with, she'd yelp and cry when I went near her to test her blood or to give her insulin, which makes it really hard as an owner because you know that you have to do this.
We're nervous about it. I'm a little bit nervous too sometimes.
Absolutely. You get uptight and stressed and that stresses them out. But, you know, now she just waits after her dinner. She just sits there and waits for her injection. I no longer used to have to use numbing cream on her. I just inject her and she's a tiny little treat and off she goes. You know, she's amazing.
So she settled down really well after this like initial like what's going on in my life, but actually this is not so bad and I get a treat when I get my injection.
Yes, absolutely.
So if you had like advice for somebody who's just got the diagnosis and is thinking about this, what would you tell them?
I think having some support people, I've made a folder up for Bailey with all the how to manage it, all the steps to go through, how to test her blood, how to do the insulin, everything I can possibly think of, I've put in a folder so that if I ever want to go away or if I'm unwell, somebody can come in and look after her for me. Trained a couple of friends on how to do that as well. So I've got that support and backup and that peace of mind knowing that if I can't, somebody can. I think just figuring out your routine and having your supplies on hand and surrounding yourself with support and not being afraid to keep asking questions
Mm.
and finding the right support and people that can help you.
So I imagine like when you're first starting, you don't even know the questions you need to ask. And it's like as you're starting to get into the process of managing or things come up, that's when it's really critical to be able to find someone who can help give you that sort of peace of mind or answers you're looking for.
Yes, definitely. It is incredibly overwhelming to start with, but it does definitely get easier.
I'm really glad. I know a lot of owners struggle initially and it can make it feel quite frustrating. But it sounds like for you, you've managed to find something that works really well for both you and Bailey. So there's like the light at the end of the tunnel, even though when you're in the thick of it at the beginning, it might not seem like it.
Yes,
That's been incredibly helpful, and I appreciate your time to share this, Julie. I think a lot of other owners who are just at the beginning of the journey will find this very useful to know that, that it can be manageable. Thanks so much.
you're very welcome.